Points battles, championship implications, consistency. All of these are key talking points in the world of sim racing for 48 weeks of the year. But today is not part of one of those 48 weeks. That's right, the notorious Week 13 has come and it's about to go. But before it does, it wouldn't be a proper Week 13 without a special race for bragging rights and pride. But you won't be able to claim those bragging rights without first earning them through sheer skill, speed, and bravery. That kind of an introduction can only mean one thing. It's the gathering of tweakers as the Week 13 Skippy Fun has returned. Hello and welcome to the land of the rising sun, more specifically, the Tsukuba circuit here on the island of Honshu, as the Global SimRacing Channel gets set to bring you all the action on track, as the gathering of tweakers will determine only one winner today. Up above all that on-track action is your commentary booth, where you'll find yours truly, Nick Schmeg, being joined today by Stefan Schlacker. In the director's chair is the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and as always, he'll be using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Steph Tsukuba is still a new track in the minds of many people in the iRacing community, as it was added to the service not very long ago. With that being said, though, its rise in popularity has been through the roof. Tell us a little more about what makes this track so unique for the drivers today.
Well, first of all, also from me, Tsukuba kara yokoso. As Nick already said, only being added 13 weeks ago, Tsukuba Circuit has already a place in everyone's heart who took their car to this track. Located just a few miles away from the eastern coast of Japan, it is a popular venue for drifting. The 2000 in the name stands for the 2.05 kilometers of tarmac which make up this 12-turn circuit. We're here today to see the Skip Barber Formula 2000 car tackle the bank turns and great flow of this track. Even though this track is nearly as flat as a pancake, it still has great challenges to offer for today's drivers. So let us show you the unique challenges this track has to offer as we take you on board our GSRC lap guide.
Alright, we've got Johan Vandenbelt and the GSRC Skippy, so let's do a lap around Tsukuba. Turn 1 is going to be one of the few good places to get a pass done, so expect some aggressive moves here, especially at the start. Since it's a hairpin, it's best to try to square off the exit. Granted, being able to do anything with a run on your opponent is unlikely because there's not much straightaway before you hit turn 5. Plus, the little bends in the track make it tough to go too wide. There's a lot of banking in this second hairpin, but avoid the temptation to get on the power too early because it's easy to wind up understeering off the track. Quickly, you'll be approaching turn 7, which is a fast sweep to the right. Then, you're hugging the left side to get set up for 10. You might see some pass attempts into here, but they're typically some surprise dive bombs. The downside of those moves is most drivers will pull an over-under and get the spot right back. The track opens up on the exit of it, so you can reapply the power sooner than you expect. That'll be important too, because the run to turn 12 is one of the longest straights of the track. Sadly, this final corner is one of the few fast turns on the circuit and isn't likely to present much in the way of overtakes. It's a surprisingly late apex, so try not to enter too shallow. From there, get your foot down and hopefully you've now finished a lap around Tsukuba.
So there you see a very fast lap around Tsukuba circuit here, and while these Skip Barbers are not the fastest cars on iRacing, this is one of the shorter tracks. They do get around here rather quickly, just over a minute in lap times. We are in practice right now for the race today, and we have a little bit of an interesting format today. We're going to be doing they'll be going out there for a 5-minute qualifying session with just one flying lap is all they get for that. That's going to set them up for the sprint race, which will be a 15-minute race. We'll give you the results of that, go to break, and then we will come back for the 90-minute main event, which is going to be set based off of the results of the sprint race. So, Steph, to me, that means one thing here. These tiny cars and the tiny track position is going to be key.
It is a tiny track, but it really is a wide track. So track position, you still can make up your positions if you really need to. But after all that, or because of all that, track position, as you said, still will be key. Because even though it's a wide track and you can make those positions made up, it's still gonna be hard because the level of competition in this fun race is still very high.
It absolutely is, and one of the things, again, to take a look, one of the factors going into this race in the Skip Barber is they are using that brand new tire model in the Skip Barber that iRacing just added with our newest update, the newest build just this past week. I'm not a frequent to the Skip Barber in my driving time on iRacing, but from what I'm hearing from the community, it definitely is changing the game a lot. You're not able to go out there and just start running flying laps. You really have cold tires when you get out there, and it takes quite a bit of time to warm them up, and then the fall off is also pretty significant, I'm hearing.
Yeah, you said it. Basically summed up this new time model. It really is like that. It feels like the tires need their time to warm up. You need to be careful on your first 2-3 out laps. You need to take in account that you have those cold tires. So you're not allowed to push. You're not allowed to treat them badly, because they are gonna fall off if you treat them badly. So you really have to be careful, and it really feels like a well-made compound that actually, you know, kind of like your softs in Formula 1, where you have to treat them a bit better so you get the performance out of them later throughout the stint.
It'll be definitely interesting to watch. A lot of these drivers are have to kind of relearn this car to a certain extent today. But what better place to do that than a Week 13 special event like the Gathering of Tweakers here today? Right now, like I said, we're watching practice. You're watching Jan Heinlever go around right now. Have quite a few drivers out today, 26 at last count, I believe. Right now, Jaap Mulder has the top time in practice, and in just a couple minutes, we'll be going to that single lap qualifying.
Just had a quick look. About the top 14 positions, top 15 positions are within a full second of each other. So about half the field is within a full second of the leader. So that is, as said, competition super high here.
One of the interesting things, we mentioned the new tire model earlier. One of the main factors in tires on iRacing or in real-world racing is the weather. So let's take a look at the weather here. It is early morning here in Japan. It is the land of the rising sun, and the sun is literally rising here in the virtual world, but looks pretty cool out there compared to what it might be later in the main event.
Yeah, well, we will have to monitor the weather situation, but right now 74 degree on the track temperature. That's Fahrenheit out there. Also wind, 11 miles per hour from the east. So yeah, it's not that easy of conditions out there today.
One of the things we were watching earlier, Steph, before we came on the air, was you were talking about the danger zones of this track, and usually before a broadcast or before a race, we're looking at the danger zones being maybe a tight chicane or a tight hairpin turn. This track, it might be pit lane.
Yeah, it's incredibly narrow. It's just a bit over the car width of the Skip Barber. But one danger zone that you can have, or that is also on this track itself, is actually turn 4. It's that infield hairpin, because leading up to it you have that left and right kink, so you're braking while turning. And when you're side by side with someone through there, you might run into some slight difficulties to stay side by side on the track.
Absolutely, especially in the open-wheeled cars, you can't really beat and bang off of each other here at Tsukuba. I should mention, they will be using an 80% maximized fuel tank for the main event. They're not going to need that for just the 15-minute sprint qualifying race, because it's only 15 minutes, they'll make it anyway. But that will require one pit stop later in the main event, so we'll have to watch those strategies play out as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, especially because with the Skip Barber, you have a very slow refuel rate. So it's going to be interesting to actually see the pit stop times that these guys will be doing here because of that slow refuel rate.
And you just saw our graphic there at the top left. Practice wrapping up, so we're going to begin the 5 minutes of one lap flying laps. They're going to have to get everything they can out of this one lap. It's going to set the grid for the 15-minute sprint race, where I expect all heck to break loose, especially up at the front.
Well, Tyrone is right now doing something that I was honestly expecting for qualifying right now. Just take your time and really get to work with those tires. Really try to warm them up, because you only have that one lap. And yeah, as you said, for the grid then, into turn 1, we might see some issues because with those cold tires, it's gonna be tricky first few laps with such a tight field that we have today.
Yeah, you see many drivers trying to weave, almost as if it's like a pace lap on an oval race, trying to warm up those tires and get them all heated up because they only get one lap. The new tire model here in the Skippies, it almost reminds me of like the Star Mazda or the one of the other open wheel cars, maybe the Lotus 79. Just being more realistic, really got to get heat in those tires if you want grip in the turns.
Well, I can tell you, Dirk Teurlings, he is right now already going out of turn 1. He did not care about doing the weave. He's just going flat out on his outlap and already through the first sector on his flying lap.
That is a strategy that we've seen a couple of people do so far. You see him there setting his lap almost halfway through that lap already. You definitely want to carry speed off of your outlap onto your flying lap, so you don't want to be too slow getting those tires warmed up, but you want to maintain a little bit of pace as well. You saw Dirk Teurlings do that there. He has just his last turn here on this lap. I believe he'll be the first person to get a lap time in.
Yes, he's pretty much the only one who went straight away out and full throttled his flying lap. Let's see what he can do. 1 minute 2.9. That's quite a bit slower than his practice time.
You see Bjorn de Force coming off there. It's going to be a 103, a little bit slower than Dirk. Nick Thiessen's going to have a 103.065 in second right now. Like you said, a little bit slower here than in practice. That might just be because of those tires not getting all the way warmed up yet. Whereas in practice, they had multiple laps to put some heat in those things.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone is about 1 second to 2 seconds slower than their practice time. So, yeah, the new tires in full effect here.
Yeah, if you ever think that a tire model is just a very slight change, well, think again, because we're seeing 1 or 2 seconds of difference here just because of a 10-lap gap. Martin Asher, while I was saying that, went to the top of the board with a 102.6. That's 0.3 faster than Dirk Teurlings, as we've had 17 now of our laps come in.
Well, Dirk right now shows that it doesn't matter if you weave your way around the first lap or you just go flat out on the first lap, because he is still sitting there in second place. And yeah, everyone else just having problems with their tires.
Everyone basically having to learn from scratch, and I'm taking a look back at Asher's lap. I think he took the Dirk Teurling strategy as well. I don't think he took too much care in warming those tires up and weaving on his outlap, so might be the way to go here in qualifying, we're finding. Taking a look at Vaslob's lap here.
I saw him do a few rounds of the moto chicane, so this will be quite a slow lap here, if it counts.
Saw a little bit of a slide there coming off the last turn. It's going to be good enough for 6th right now. That's about where he was sitting in practice as well, but that big old slide in the last... well, this is an interesting strategy here. It's week 13, anything goes, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Some great control in the mirrors there. Great focus by by him there. Ooh, Martin Asher continues to hold. Oh, maybe just a little bit.
As he turns it around. But yeah, that should be it for qualifying, as Chiron tried to drift his Skip Barber there.
That should be. So let's take a look at the grid quickly here before the sprint race. Martin Asher is going to be on the pole with Dirk Teurlings to his outside. Nick Thiessen, Jaap Mulder, Bob Van Katwijk going to round out your top 5. Behind them, the number 1 of Bas Slob, the 207 of Marco Derricks, and Bjorn de Force will be in row 4. Peter Balassa and Anthony DeLahees will round out your top 10. Steph?
Yup, Willems, the admin of this Wendt will be starting in 11th, Michiel Leurmans in 12th, Franz Janssen in 13th, Maurice Wertz in 14th, Patrick Post in 15th, Marco Nog in 16th, Casper van Zon in 17th, Christer de Ridder in 18th, Watse Goldenwijk in 19th, and Roman Kaika in 20th.
And 6 more drivers, along with JB Masita there, choosing not to put up a lap. It's going to be Martin Ewan, Frank Bienendijk, Ursum, Paulo Martins, Jan Hein Lever, and Roman Kajka rounding out the 26-car field for the sprint race here. And it will be a standing start up at the front with Martin Asher once everyone gets gridded.
Yeah, and our admin just put out the ice warning for Tsukuba.
I know Pennsylvania got an ice storm last night, but it might feel like Japan did as well. These cars, everyone getting gridded up. About ready to let them loose for 15 minutes. It's going to be interesting to see what happens down into turn 1, what kind of line Asher is going to hold here. And if everyone can make it with those cold new tires that they all have to learn. Getting ready to go. The green flag is out. Lights are out. They head on down the front straightaway. It was a good jump from everyone, it looked like. No one having problems yet heading into the first turn side by side. Everyone being a little bit cautious. Asher holds it now, but Turling's head, almost want to say the whole shot as they head back onto this set of S's here.
Yeah, everyone gave everyone quite a bit of room there. As, oh, in the backfield we have side by side and contact into turn 3 into the hairpin there.
Everyone needing to give everyone a little bit of space, but clean up front right now. It's continuing to be Asher, followed by Turlings and Nick Thiessen now in third.
Yeah, you saw it at the bottom of your screen. There was a bit of more contact through the hairpin because of the checkup created by the first incident. But other than that, everyone is starting to get into single file and get into some sort of rhythm.
Jaap Mulder coming into the pits. I think I might have seen him jump the start just a little bit. That might be a black flag for him, which would be unfortunate. And just in this 15-minute race, going to have to make that up quickly. Turling's looking at Asher right now. A little bit of a 3-car breakaway up front.
Asher was quite sketchy there onto the brakes there. Just opted to take the wide line, not to force the car into something that it didn't want to do. Great awareness by him there.
I think there might have been a little bit of contact there with the front of Turlings and the back of Asher. These turns are pretty tight, and getting these cars woed up is sometimes not easy, especially when you're trying to maintain those tires here early in the run. Looks like something happened to Jeroen Ursum as well. Trying to find out. Oh, we had quite an incident with him. Take a look at the replay here. Happened in front of him. It looks like Christer de Ridder and
yeah, there was two
Lever, I believe.
Wide situation ahead of him. We just have to go a bit back. There we go. It's gonna happen ahead of him because one car goes onto the grass and collects the inside car. There you can see it on your screen, and yeah, turn nowhere to go.
It was Christer de Ridder getting on the curbing there and getting into Jan Hein Lever, kind of lofted him up into the wheel. Used him as a springboard there, and like you said, Ursum just nowhere to go behind him. Unfortunate start for those guys back there. Same storyline up front, though. Asher continues to lead Turlings, who is above Thiessen right now. And Turlings continuing to look on the inside of Asher, just can't quite make the pass, can't quite get the run done. Looks like we have a little bit of a battle for back in P7, though.
Yeah, exactly. The Bjorn de Volke and Anthony de Lees were having a side-by-side there through the last turn, as now behind them, Jupp Willems and Peter Balosch now have a side-by-side, fighting quite fiercely here in the opening first laps.
It is a traffic jam back there. Bas Slob holding on right now, but behind them a lot of side-by-side Delahey's and Bjorn de Force, like you said. Peter Balassa coming up behind them, trying to put his nose in there. I think he's going to make that work for now.
Oh, we actually have a side-by-side. We had a side-by-side for P2 that went away again, so this fight here is the closest one right now.
It is a pack race back there.
Oh, what happened to Cadwick?
Cadwick off track. Looks like he just lost it by himself. We'll take a look at the replay here, and man, he tried to hold on to it. You can definitely hear the tires squealing through that turn. Just a little too much speed there and not enough.
Oh,
grip.
there's big crash for the fight.
Pass for P2 on screen. Almost. Churlings is going to hold on to it. He gets that spot back, but Nick Thiessen was definitely looking there. And while that was happening, we had a big incident somewhere.
Yeah, it was for actually P6. Anthony Delayas and Peter Balosch came together and created quite a smokescreen in the middle of turn 1. And there's also a car going further up the road into the barrier. That was Michiel Leurmans, who got ran into by JB Masida because of the checkup.
Peter Balassa getting into the 861 like you saw there, and yeah, just everyone trying to react there like dominoes, and some of them fell before they got knocked into. It is now a 2-second lead that Asher has over Dirk Tourlings, as we are down to 9 minutes left in this race, but that battle for P2 continuing to fight on strong. That's Nick Thiessen in the 13, trying to look for a way around the 73.
Yeah, and it seems like that Nick can go faster than Dirk in front, so it wouldn't surprise me if he tries to do something through the infield of Tsukuba.
Ooh, he got a big run there off of that turn, but the straightaway just not quite long enough for him to get enough toe off the back of the 73 of Tourlings to get that big run and slingshot his way around here. There is a backstretch here, but other than that, draft really not too much of a factor.
Dirk
Bit of a
wide.
Bit of a skirmish for P8. Further back, Maurice Wirtz. Oh, with contact with Masida. And now they're going to be 3 wide. Masida taking some front end damage, like you said there. Martin Yoon as well. Everyone looking for room, but sometimes in this track, you just can't find it, especially in that tricky infield section.
Masida goes there on the brakes later than Yoon and takes that position away there from him. Great overtake there, but Yoon not happy with that, tries to come back right away into turn 1, but on the outside, no chance of
A little bit of a bump draft there from Yoon, and both of those cars actually have a little bit of front wing damage from that incident. Doesn't seem to be slowing them down too much right now because they are pushing hard. Yoon looking on the inside, almost got sideways, trying to get around Masida. Masida goes back to a defensive line, and he holds down the position. We have a good battle for 6th going on as well. Bjorn de Force trying to hold off Jeppe Willemsen right in front of these guys. And they are still pushing hard to there down the backstretch.
Yeah, you're saying that yep, they're quite twitchy through the last turn, trying to come back onto the throttle, so he will not have a run on the fork ahead of him. He has to stay behind for now.
These cars with the smaller engine, one thing I'm really seeing today is you really got to wind them up. You have to have a perfect turn, especially coming off of the corner, because you're really trying to carry all the momentum you can, but with this tight of a track, this small of a track I should say, it's pretty wide in some parts, it's hard to do that.
Yeah, this track is anyway all about turn exit speed, but ever so more with these cars, because as you said, they're not as powerful, so you really have to get your turns right, or you're gonna be a sitting duck on the short straights here.
You see there at the top of the screen the purple graphic, the fastest lap of the race so far. It goes to Jaap Mulder, who is sitting back in 16th.
Oh, I'm sorry, P2 is right now side by side.
Oh, it is Turlings. Thiessen looking on the outside, not going to be able to get it done there. He has a big bobble. He's going to have to get it back underneath him, and he does, but he's lost a little bit of time, and you can see the gap there. He's got 5 minutes to try to compose a couple of laps and get around Turlings, who has held him off adamantly this entire race so far.
Yeah, you're saying it. Turlings really great defending over Thiessen here, and Thiessen just not able to do anything with any of the opportunities that he has been given so far when Dirk made a mistake. So yeah, great driving by both drivers here, and so far Turlings with the upper hand on pretty much every occasion that Thiessen tried to make a move.
That gap has closed back down. We saw Turlings have a little bit of he was a little offline there through the last turn of the last lap, but I didn't see Thiessen close in too much compared to what he has. Now back in the infield section, it seems to me as Thiessen a little bit faster in the infield section than the faster portions of this track, the front stretch, the back stretch. That's where Turlings is really prevailing.
Yeah, the thing is with these new tires, you kind of have to be now starting to compromise. One tire pressure that is good for, especially here in the infield with the slower turns, isn't going to be performing as good as a higher pressure that will perform here through this last turn. So you really have to compromise a little bit, because both sections, that last turn and that infield hairpin, are both quite important.
They head on to their 12th lap of this 15-minute race. Laps are about 1 minute each. And actually, some of them have been getting faster and faster, getting those getting the tires, getting them heated up. Thiessen's still looking, just can't get anything done on Turlings. So I am curious as to how aggressive Thiessen's going to push this. This is just the sprint race to set us up later for the main event, the 90-minute push to the end. And I wonder if Thiessen's just going to be happy with a third place, or if he really wants to get that extra spot on the grid.
Well, it's not only an extra spot, it's also a few meters up on the road as Thiessen tries to go to the inside here, but Turlings, once again, just more speed through the last turn.
Ooh, and you saw Thiessen get up on the curbing just a little bit on this right side. That really slows you down a little bit. Doesn't seem to be bothering him too much, though. He almost outbrakes himself headed into turn one, pushing probably harder than ever now. Ooh, take a look at the battle for 10th place. Frank Binnendijk holding, he just got that position actually. And side by side behind them, Bob Van Kattewyk, he saw him run into trouble earlier, and Maurice Wirtz continuing to be side by side. That's for 11th behind Binnendijk. Looks like they might go single file here. Wirtz falling in line behind Kattewyk. 2 laps to go. Martin Asher continuing to lead. It's a 2.8 gap. And how about Nick Thiessen putting up the fastest lap right now, side by side with Turling? He's looking, but he's on the outside again. Go ahead.
Really pushing here. He's really trying to get that P2 away, trying to at least push Turlings into a mistake here. And it starts to kind of work now, as Turlings now 2 corners in a row made quite a bit of a mistake there, but Thiessen just not able to do anything with the opportunities given.
He's trying to get that crossover move done. The undercut on Turlings just can't quite get it done there. They're going to come up to 1 lap to go when Asher hits the line. And we'll see what Thiessen can do. 12 turns is all he's got. He's got a little bit of a slide coming off there, getting onto the AstroTurf, but still very fast down the front stretch on the last lap of the sprint race here. Continues to look. He sometimes goes to the outside here. He's going to choose not to do that this time. He wants to stay in line and try to set up that pass somewhere else later on in the track. Turlings holding down the fort as he's done for all 15 minutes of this race, though. It's going to be a hard fort to invade. He's going to look to the inside. Turlings is going to have the preferred line. It's going to take quite the move to get it done. He's going to have the inside. No, he does not able to get side by side. Falls in behind him. Going to try to get a little bit of a drag off of him. Ahead of them, Asher is making his way through the last turn. Turlings exiting the last turn as well. A little bit of contact between them. They're going to be able to keep going. Thiessen's front wing damaged just slightly from that, but it's going to be Turlings in second and Thiessen in third.
Thiessen really tried to do something there, but Turlings, he was a bit sliding, so he had to lift there, and Thiessen did not expect it, as the last few cars come over the start-finish line.
Going to take a look at that finish once again. Just a little bit of contact here. This is on the backstretch here, but when they go through the final turn, Thiessen's looking for any room around, and just nothing he could have done there, really. I see him get a little bit of a run, try to hit the apex a little bit later than Turlings, and boom, right into the backside of him, and that's when Thiessen backs off and calls it a day for P3. If that 15-minute race gave us any indication of what to look for in the main event, or are in for a treat. Let's take a look at our results. And remember, this is going to start the grid as well for the main event. Martin Asher going to come home with the win, dominated that race, led every single lap, I'm pretty sure. Dirk Turlings behind him, Nick Thiessen, we saw that battle there at the end. Marco Derricks had a quiet race. He's going to finish 4th. Bas Slob, he slipped up into a top 5 position. Bjorn de Forsch will follow. He was battling Jeppe Willemsen, and he's going to hold him off for 6th and 7th. Behind them, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Going to go to JB Masita, Martin Yoon, and Frank Binnendijk.
Bob van Katwijk is going to start the second race in 11th place. He had a bit of a miserable race as he started in 5th place. Maurice van Wertz is coming home, or did come home, in 12th place. Frans Janssen in 13th. Anthony Della Hayes in 14th, Marco Noak in 15th, Watse Goldenwick in 16th, Christa de Ridder in 17th, and that's already the last car that finished today's first sprint race. Job Mulder 3 laps down, 18th, Peter Balázs in 19th, 10 laps down, Casper van Zoon in 20th, also 10 laps down.
Behind them, 10 laps down as well, goes for Michael Lormans in 21st, Patrick Post 13 laps down. There's a trio of cars, 14 laps down. Jeroen Ursum, Jan Hein Lever, Paulo Martins, and then Roman Kashka did not start the race today. He's going to be 26th for the main event. We're going to take a break here on the Global SimRacing Channel. When we come back, we will be setting up for the main event. You will not want to miss that. Welcome back to the Tsukuba circuit here for the Gathering of Tweakers Skippy Fun Week 13 event. We just finished up our 15-minute sprint race to set the grid for the 90-minute main event, the show you came to see. And we thank you for sticking with us as we got the server switched over, and we are here to set you up for the show. And Steph, one huge observation is that the weather has pretty drastically changed.
Yeah, drastically is one word to say it. It's overcast now instead of partly cloudy, and the track temperature is only 64 Fahrenheit. Wind though 3 miles per hour, so that's not going to play any role here. But that overcast, low temperature weather, that's going to be quite some difficult settings for these Skip Barbers.
We were talking about the new version 7 tire model on these Skip Barber cars and how much more drastically of a difference it made in that first race than I think a lot of people expected. And then on top of that, you throw in a couple of factors. It is 6:30 virtual standard time, so it's still pretty early morning here in Japan. And it's also, like you said, overcast. A track temp of just 64 right now. Getting heat in those tires is now going to be even more difficult.
Well, it's great drifting weather, though.
And we are in Japan, so it is fitting. But I'm not sure if these guys are going to be wanting to drift around for 90 minutes. That would be quite a spectacle to see. But at the same time, it is week 13, so who knows what kind of crazy games and shenanigans we might get ourselves into here.
Well, hopefully we get ourselves into an awesome, exciting race with these cars. Pit stop strategy will play a role here, because maybe some people go with the short stint at the start of the race and then go with the longer stint, or split it in the middle, or go long short, or who knows what they come up with strategy-wise.
If you're just joining us, you missed a fantastic 15-minute sprint race to set the grid for this one. And if that's any indication of what we're going to see in this one, like Stefan said there, it's going to be a good one for sure. We're going to have battles all throughout the field, everyone wanting these positions. And like you said again there, we do have an 80% max fuel limit on these Skippies today. For this race, that is going to mean they are going to require one pit stop somewhere through the midway part of this race. And we might see a couple of different games be played with these strategies, the calculators, and the numbers being thrown out there to get themselves to the end on a full tank of fuel.
Now, I don't remember how long tires take to put on these cars, and how long these tires can actually hold up on a track like this. But I really wonder if tires are any strategy. You know, taking one tire or sorry, two tires like fronts or rears or right side, left side. I wonder if that is a valid strategy to do here.
Well, I think you are with the drivers in not really knowing if that's going to be the correct call to make. Of course, we have the new tire model that they really have to relearn on these cars. The whole car almost feels completely different besides the aerodynamics. So these guys going to have to learn. It'll be a good learning curve for them before the Skip Barber season starts on the official iRacing service. And this is going to be a great chance for them to play around with some different experiments.
I'm sorry, I heard you say aerodynamics. I don't really see much aerodynamic effects going on in this car, apart from it being a bit more slipstream than what you would normally see. But yeah, obviously these cars are having so little aerodynamics that I don't even know if they produce any significant amount of aerodynamic force. But yeah, we already said it in a 50-minute race, and I think we have to say it again. The most crucial part of this race will be the pit entrance, because it is so incredibly tight and slow.
Yeah, you don't want to. You're going to have to be careful, very careful getting through there. especially in the race when you're battling with other people. If you come in with someone else, that might get a little bit hectic. And then once you get on pit road, that also is pretty tight as well.
Yeah, we saw some incidents yesterday in DGFX where people tried to pit, hitting the pit wall or getting, a little bit of a friendly shove into the pit lane. And yeah, the thing is, you will have people drafting up to one another. So we might see some people getting a little bit caught out by other pitting, especially when we come towards the start of the pit cycle. So that might be a thing to watch out for, or maybe people even outbraking themselves into the pit lane entrance and shooting back out right into the racing line. A few unknown factors here, but I'm sure these drivers will come over them.
Gonna take a look at the starting grid once again. It is Martin Asher on the pole with Dirk Twirlings to his outside. Nick Thiessen, Marco Derricks, Bas Slob round out the top 5. Remember, these are the finishing results of the sprint race. Bjorn de Forsch, Jep Willemsen, JB Masita, Martin Yoon, Bob Van Cadwick in your top 10.
Maurice Wertz in 11th, Franz Janssen, Anthony De Hayes, Mark Knock, and Watse Goldewig rounding out the top 15. Chris de Ritter in 16th, Job Mahler 17th, Peter Ballasch in 18th, Michael Lurmans in 19th, 20th, Patrick Post, and rounding out the last 3 drivers are Jörn Ursum, Jan Heim-Lever, and Paulo Martins in 23rd.
We've lost 3 drivers, it looks like. We had 26 for the sprint race, and a couple people having some hardware issues, it sounds like, unfortunately. So we hope they can get those resolved and maybe even join us later on in this race. But it looks like we're going to have a 23-car starting grid for the main event. So a couple of the drivers in the back might have been bumped up a couple of meters on the starting grid, which is great news for them. The lights are out. Martin Asher is going to take the green flag with the start. It's a slow, cautious start. But how about Dirk Turlings? He was faster in practice than Asher. Looks to the inside in turn 1. Behind them, they've got to get sorted out from this double file because this track gets real tight real quickly.
Well, you're saying double file. Actually, for P11, they were 3 wide out of turn 1, but already sorted out there.
Everyone still getting up to speed here.
Oh,
trouble!
Martin Asher!
It is Asher in front of the field. Everyone missing him so far. We'll take a look at that in just a moment, but that is going to hand the lead over to Marco Derricks, who started 4th in this race. Bas Slob behind him.
Yeah, Dirk Teurlings, he had some great avoidance there of the spinning car of Martin Asher. Took it actually onto the grass to avoid his car and lost a few positions because of that.
We will take a look at the replay here with Asher, the pole sitter and the winner of the sprint race. Just a little bit of contact. Everyone pushing hard here at the beginning, and was there actual contact, or did he just go around?
I think he went onto the grass there and thus spun out. Spins right into the field there, and everyone manages to avoid him. Let's see that one more time there. Now he just loses it over the curbs.
Wow, so that's...
Oh, with another wrecked car. Maurice Wertz just wrecked himself into the tire barriers very hard. He was actually avoiding the standing car of JB Masia, who wrecked in front of him. Went into the barriers and got flung out back onto the track there. There you were able to see that red and white car was Maurice Wertz.
There's a hard hit there. We'll take a look at this here. Hold on, folks. Wertz goes for quite the ride here. Like you said, trying to avoid the other car on track, JB Masita, who had an issue of his own before that. Back up front, the battle for second place. It's Baslav and Dirk Twirlings.
Nick Tissen had a big slide through the Dunlop.
Ooh, he did. Everyone trying to get these tires up to heat. And Thiessen gets it back going.
Tissen took motor layout there.
The Joker lap.
And Peter Baloch now spins in the last turn.
We'll take a look at that in the moment. The battle for P2 rages on. Baslav on the inside of Dirk Twirlings right now in turn 1. Slob started all the way back in 5th. That early incident with Asher helped him move forward. The car right behind them is Bjorn DeForce, who started 6th. It looks like this battle might settle down for just a little moment.
And I have to say, while this was going on, I was also having my eye on the incidents that were happening in the last turn, and it looked like there was oil down on the track, because 4 or 5 cars all went spinning themselves out there in the last turn.
This colder track, the cold tires not getting along with each other, especially in that part of the track, and it should heat up over time, not just the tires, but also the track. It's already risen about 2 degrees Fahrenheit, as the sun is starting to even peek out in a couple different areas, it looks like. Dirk Twirlings has held on to second, and he's pulling away even more, but behind them, the battle for P3 now. It's Baslav holding off Bjorn DeForce and Bob Van Katowijk joining the party up here in the top 5. A lot of these guys starting far back, moving up behind them. P6, Anthony DeLahey's holding off Yip Willemsen. What a drive it's been for DeLahey's so far, 13th to 6th. And trouble up front with Marco Dierix.
Yeah,
he was your leader and lost it by himself.
Yeah, it seems like he just overbraked it, literally locked up the rear tires there and spins himself around, goes directly out of the racing line onto the grass, nearly loses it on the grass there too.
He finds himself in 5th place, it looks like now. And you saw the purple lap at the top of the screen. That's Martin Asher, the pole sitter. Ran into early trouble, and he is already back up to 8th. Currently, it looks like he just got around Jan Heinlever. And do not count Asher out. Oh, trouble ahead of him.
4 wide. Oh!
Big trouble. What happened there? That was Marco Dierix again. This time off the nose of DeLahey's. Definitely contact here. And everyone just tried to get it woed up, and 4 wide didn't quite work.
Yeah, Marco Dierix really slow through the hairpin and then gets collected by the car behind him and starts a bit of a chain reaction there as Martin Asher goes into pit lane.
Oof, I thought he might be able to get away with minimal damage there.
Yip Willems, just out of the last turn, goes over the curbs and spins himself nearly out there. Great save by him.
Everyone, well, you mentioned drifting earlier. We might see a 90-minute drift fest today. Everyone currently only on lap 7, trying to get those tires warmed up, trying to figure out this car-track combo with the weather conditions, and everyone's struggling here early, it looks like.
Yeah, it really seems like these cars are really struggling with these low temperatures that we're experiencing. Track still only 68 Fahrenheit, so not really getting warmer from what we saw at the beginning of this session.
We're looking at the battle for 6th place right now. It is Marco Dierix, who's had quite the eventful start to this race. He was your leader and quickly fell back, but somehow holding on to 6th place right now. Behind them, DeLahey's holding off Thiessen. And Dirk Turling's your leader, setting the fastest lap right now.
I have to tell you though, 4P5, we have a 4-car train 4P5, and they're fighting really fiercely, as you can see on your screen there. That's on board Nick Thiessen here, fighting against Anthony De La Hayes.
How about Jan Heinlever coming from 22nd all the way up to 5th? Holding off Marco Derricks right now, and behind them, like you said, De La Hayes and Thiessen side by side.
And Thiessen just managed to get past Anthony De La Hayes here on a great pass down the inside on the brakes, outbraking his opponent, and gets that position away.
Marco Derricks right now being overtaken, it looks like, by Jan, or he is trying to get around Jan Heinlever. He's got the inside. I think he's going to be able to clear him. He does indeed. So Derricks will be your new 5th place positioned driver. Behind them, that's going to allow Thiessen and De La Hayes to close in. Bas Slob continuing to hold on to 2nd place. Bjorn de Forsch has made a couple of goes at it, but Bob Van Kattewyk behind de Forsch in the 87 Skippy has kind of prevented that, because he's kind of distracting de Forsch from going forward. He's having to defend Bob Van Kattewyk because he's had some great runs as well on him. And he's got one here as they slide just a little bit through that turn.
Yeah, we are having 2 packs of 3 right now. 1 for 2nd place, 1 for 6th behind. Trying to keep my eyes on both of these battles and keep you updated on them. And Bas Slob is not really getting away from Björn and Bob, but also not really getting closer to Dirk in front of him.
All while that's happening, Dirk Turling's up front, continuing to get faster and faster throughout the first 10 or 11 minutes now of this race. Starting to pull away. It was a 2.5-second lead last at the line at the last lap. Now down to 2.4, but wouldn't be surprised if we saw that move back up a couple tenths.
And on your screen, you just saw Nick Thiessen just overtook Jan Heinlever there for P6 once again. Same move on Anthony De La Hayes there, and yeah, he's really on the move forward. Now in 6th, and he's already set his sights on P5.
Ooh, I'd hate to be the driver ahead of Nick Thiessen for position, because Thiessen got quite a lot of practice in that sprint race trying to get around Turlings. He really figured out what part of the track works, what doesn't. I think he's going to be a hard one to hold off today. And now he's looking at Marco Derricks, and I think Derricks is thinking the exact same thing. Let's check in on the battle for 10th place. This is Patrick Post holding off Martin Yoon. Patrick Post, one of those drivers starting way back in 20th. He is up to 10th, but he has definitely got his hands full, and his mirror is also full. Martin Yoon, who's had a quiet race as well, staying out of trouble. He's trying to find a way around him.
Actually, let's go quickly back to P5 as Nick Thiessen just overtook Marco Derricks down the backstretch into the last turn.
We'll take a look at the replay of this pass. Thiessen continuing to move forward.
And Thiessen actually with the fastest lap there of the race so far. And there you can see that beautiful move out of the draft, has the better run. And I think Derricks saw it and decided to, you know, lift a little bit and let him pass. He actually has quite some damage in the front too.
He does indeed. He got that earlier. Not quite when he was leading. He spun that by himself, but after that ran into some contact with another driver. Has a little bit of front left wing damage on that 207 machine. Sitting in 6th place right now.
Let's actually have a look on the gap between Toil Links and Bus Slob, which continues to grow ever so slightly. On the line it was 3.1 seconds, as you can see on the insert there. And Nick Tiss once again with the fastest lap of the race, about a tenth faster than Dirk Toil Links, who is leading this motor race.
Thiessen is fast, and he is moving forward. And another thing as well is Turlings is all by himself out there in the open at the front of this field. Thiessen's getting some great race time under his belt right now, and that might come in handy later in the race. Especially if he can close in on Turlings eventually. A lot of racing left to go. Anything can happen.
Yeah, and we're already nearly 15 minutes into this race. Lots of actions in the first 13 laps so far. And hopefully it continues like this.
Ooh.
Oh, De La Haze.
Problems for delay. He's off in the final turn. Way off into the gravel. Kept it out of the wall. Take a look at the replay here. What exactly happened to cause him to go off? He was right in front of Jep Willemsen, but I don't believe there was any contact. I think he's just a little too fast entering there and a little offline. Looks like he may have just lost it.
Yeah, you got it spot on there. He just took it too far into the turn and lost a few positions there, but at least he didn't lose his car or parts of his car.
Nothing new up front. It is Dirk Turlings holding off Bas Slob by a couple of seconds now, but the battle for third place is getting pretty good. That's still Bjorn de Forsch holding off Bob Van Kattewyk, trying to chase him down and set something up, but Van Kattewyk just hasn't been able to find any looks around him yet. We talked about momentum and how hard it is to maintain here at Tsukuba in the sprint race. When we were watching Thiessen try to get around Turlings for the entirety of that race, and that is looking very similar to what we're seeing here with a couple of different battles on track, like this one between de Forsch and Van Kattewyk.
Last lap, the gap between Kattewyk and Thiessen, it got lowered by 5/10 by Thiessen. Thiessen with a 101.1, and oh, Björn, they are actually side by side right now, 4P3, and Kattewyk takes that away.
He does indeed. Got him into the last turn. We've seen that might be the best passing spot on the whole track. Van Kattewyk finally finds a way around Bjorn de Forsch, and he moves up into the podium. He's now got his sights set on Bas Slob, but he's going to have to continue to hold off de Forsch, who I'm guessing is going to want that position back. They are fairly spread out behind them. A little bit of a battle for P12. Franz Janssen and Peter Balassa. A couple of quiet races checking in back here on the back half of the field. Great racing all throughout the field, though.
Yeah, no matter where we are, you will probably find someone. Obviously, we have a few damaged cars in the back half of your field because of the early lap incidents we saw as Ballas takes it too wide there on the inside of Janssen, tries to take that away from him down the inside, and Janssen, no, nothing against that, and yeah, Ballas move him up into 12th position.
We saw there during that battle, Bob Van Kattewyk actually set the fastest lap of this race so far. He is chasing Bas Slob and kind of closing in on that second place position. The gap has definitely shrunk since we last checked in.
Now, Kattewyk really getting closer there to Slop, actually the last lap of Catwick, the first one we saw below a 101 there with a 1 minute 1 minute point 9. So he really puts the hammer down right now.
He is continuing to look. Yep, go ahead.
I just want to say, one thing I find really interesting is that Marco Derricks, even though he has that quite severe nose damage there on his car, he really is able to stick with Nick Thiessen in the draft of that Skip Barber ahead of him.
He is indeed, and I don't think he's the only one either. We've seen a couple of cars with a little bit of damage. Derricks, I think, the farthest one up with some pretty significant damage, but I think maybe that just comes as a feature of being a smaller track, not too many aerodynamic sensitive portions of this track, you think?
I'm not so sure about that because, yes, the straights aren't that long, but you still can do quite a bit here. But yeah, I think he just has some really good exits onto the straights, and that's what keeps him close. Because ultimately in a draft he still loses a little bit of time. So I think that's one possibility that could also play into that.
We were watching quite a battle go on further back. Oh, we actually have trouble. It looks like Jeroen Ursum went off in turn 1. That was right in front of a battle for P13 between Janssen and Lormans that Lormans took advantage of. Lorman's got that position, and in front of him, that's when Jeroen Ursum spun. You see him there into the barriers. He's having a rough day.
Barely into the barrier, and that was already enough to lose his rear wing.
Oof.
There's very unfortunate for him.
That is going to be a vital repair. He's looking more like a Lotus 49 right now instead of a Skip Barber with that damage. Jeroen Ursum running P20 right now, a lap down from earlier damage. Struggled in this sprint race too, got caught up in an incident in that as well. Oh, and more trouble for him. The lack of downforce not doing any favors. While that happened, we have a little bit of a battle going on for P2. Bob Van Kattewyk has really continued to close in on Bas Slob.
Yeah, you're saying it. After his little mistake that Bob had, he really did close back in onto Bas Slob. And I don't know, it seems like the Slob is starting to struggle a little bit with his tires, because he's really starting to drop off now of the back of Teurlings. Last lap 5/10 between Teurlings and Slob.
Lots of racing left. We're only 22 minutes into this 90-minute event. Lots of time for these guys to make moves, get runs. Basically an endurance race for these drivers out here. And we've seen how quickly things can change. Taking a look now, Van Kattewyk to the inside. I think he's going to get it. That seems like a very popular place to make a pass.
Slob
it's almost
actually,
like...
Sorry, Slob actually had a bit of a run there and then decided to back out of that run. I think he would have been there if he would have stayed in it, but decided against it, took the safe route there.
I think you're right. And Steph, it's almost like we're seeing that be the only, turn 12 there, be really the only place you're able to get a pass done today. It's almost as if you have the entire first 11 turns to try to set up that pass and get momentum to get that run off the backstretch and send it in there.
Well, in the case of Nick Thiessen, we already saw 4 overtakes by him into turn 11. So, but yeah, as you said, it seems like the turn 11, turn 12 are your main passing spots here. Maybe also turn 4, turn 5. But yeah, apart from that, it seems like that it's not so good passing.
Good battle going on for 10th place. Anthony DeLahey's who we've seen run into his trouble, and Peter Balassa continues to move forward. Balassa making a move right now on DeLahey. He's looking to the inside in that turn 11, turn 12 segment of the track that we were just talking about. I think he's going to be able to clear him. He will. Slides up in front of the 861 of DeLahey. He's behind them. That's Patrick Post in the popcorn position, trying to maybe stick his nose in there. Nothing yet, though.
And while this was going on, you were able to see it on the top of your screen in purple. Nick Tesson with a 1 minute .753, the fastest car out there by a quarter mile. Not quite a country mile, but a quarter mile, because this track isn't that long. But yeah, Nick Tesson, he really hammered time for him, and he is already at the back of Bjorn de Voort.
Continue to watch this battle back here. DeLahey's holding off 11th place right now. They both go wide there from Patrick Post in the 72. Back onto the front stretch. Can't get any kind of run there. Into turn 1, though. Post looks again. Thinks better of it. He gets on the brakes. Bjorn de Voort is in 4th place, but that might not be for long. He's got Nick Thiessen finally, who has caught him. Thiessen continues to move forward like Steph was talking about just a moment earlier. Purple lap after purple lap for Nick Thiessen so far in this race, up to 5th. And looking at 4th, Bjorn de Voort in front of him.
The last 7 laps as he goes side by side there into turn 1, once again outbrakes someone into a turn. The last 6 laps of Nick Thiessen, all below the 61 seconds mark. The last lap a 1 minute .6, lowering his own best lap time of this race by 1 full tenth.
Remember about 10 or 15 minutes ago, Bas Slob lost 2nd place to Bob Van Kattewick. That is the next driver on Nick Thiessen's docket. He is about a second behind him. A second and shrinking. As they go on the backstretch a little bit, or once again here, maybe a little bit of draft there from the rear end of Bas Slob's number 7 Skippy, but not enough for Thiessen to close in significantly there quite yet.
Yeah, and Nick Thiessen shows that he has found the flow of this track. Once again, a 1 minute .8. Really into the flow of this track, and it has a great flow as mentioned on the track description in the early minutes of this broadcast. Yeah, and Nick Thiessen seems also to have pretty much the perfect setup for at least on the brakes here.
Nick Thiessen, not the only driver that's getting faster and faster. Bob Van Kattewick, you saw a moment ago, set a fast lap. That was a 1 minute 6.54. He breaks into the 0.6 of a second bracket. He did have a little bit of a toe off the back of Christer de Ritter, the lap car, who is in 19th, but other than that, right behind them we see Bas Slob, who has really lost that lead over Nick Thiessen.
And Nick Thiessen, he thought about it into the last turn, but decided against it and has a bit of a run now into turn 1. Will he try to outbrake Bas Slob here? No, he won't. Bas Slob defends towards the inside.
Slob holds down the fort for now. They might run into de Ritter somewhere, and that might mess them up into the last turn. And they're going to catch him a little bit before the last turn because they've caught him. Working their way around lap traffic, they go to the outside. And they will both clear him. De Ritter gets out of the way. Thiesen's going to be able to continue to set up Slob for an overtake going into the last turn. We've seen that be a popular place for him to do that so far today. Looks to the inside, sure enough. And I think Slob saw that coming. He's going to clear him almost before they even get to the apex of the turn.
Yeah, but Slob has a run. Let's see if he decides to put it into the inside there. No, he does not. Breaks a bit earlier and has to settle for 4th.
Thiesen's been knocking him off one by one. They are going to become more and more difficult, though. He's up to 3rd, and Bob Van Cadwick is the next one in front of him. That is a big 3.2 second gap.
Yeah, and the thing is with Cadwick and Toilings, who is still leading this motor race, by the way, they are also starting to really dig into the 60-second mark, mid-60-second laps here. So it's going to be really hard for him to catch the top 2.
Take a look at Dirk Turlings there, continuing to lead the race. Big old, almost 5-second gap over Van Cadwick, as we are down to just over 1 hour left in this motor race. Let's check in on the battle for 12th place. Anthony DeLahey continues to fall back. Patrick Post continues to put on the pressure. About half a second separates them now. But Post has been there in the mirror of the 861 of DeLahey's for quite some time.
Oh, DeLahey is really wide there. Let's see if Post can do something into turn 11. Closes up really fast here, but nope. DeLahey goes to the inside, defends that position. And Post has to see if he can do something off the turn. Gets a good run, but it's not going to be good enough.
Post going to try to set him up here for the final turn of the track. Oh, can't quite slip through there. Post goes a little bit wide. I don't think he's going to have a big enough run into turn 1 either. So DeLahey holds down 12th place for now. Got really close there. Had to get on the brakes a little extra there so there was no contact.
DeLahey seems like he's a lot faster through turn 9 than Patrick Post. Turn 9 is obviously the corner under the Dunlop bridge. Great run though by Post here down the inside of Anthony DeLahey. But DeLahey is really great on that 12th turn here and stays ahead of him for now.
Listen, we might have our first pit stop of the day. Yep, Williamson. He is in the pits, and I don't see any damage, so I'm going to assume this is a scheduled fuel stop.
It does seem so. We have half an hour done. Actually 32 minutes, so seems like that's about the start of the fuel window here.
And Williamson was further back, 11th, I believe. Further back now, of course, after pitting, but might be a little bit of a strategy game for him to try to gain some positions and short pit a couple of these guys ahead of him. We will have to take a look and see how that works out for him and see if that inspires anyone else to come into the pits here. The battle on your screen right now, it's the closest one on the track. Anthony DeLeahy's in 11th, Patrick Post in 12th. Post continues to put the pressure on him. A large majority of the gathering of Tweakers drivers coming out of the Benelux region, but Anthony DeLeahy is one of the few Frenchmen out here today.
One thing I just caught, Dirk Teurlings had a bit of a moment through the last turn as a lap car ahead of him spun out, but he was able to avoid trouble and stays on the throttle there as we go on to... There you can see the car in front on the replay.
That was Watsi Golderwijk in front of him, who was, like you said, a lap car. He was back in 17th at the time. Spun it down onto the pit entry road, and I believe he went in. No, he did not go into the pits. Stayed out on the track. Teurlings continues to lead, though. It does not cut into his lead too much. He's working on lap 34 right now, just a third of the way through this race. Still a 4.3 second gap over Bob Van Kattewyk. And remember, about the same gap behind Van Kattewyk, Nick Thiessen continues to slice and dice his way through lap traffic and try to close in on the 87 of Van Kattewyk.
Now, the really interesting thing about this is that we saw the quick spurt of the first three drivers to put in really fast mid 60-second laps. All of a sudden, though, they are now dropping lap times by about a second to what they were doing earlier. I wonder if this has to do with the track temperature going down yet again to 64 Fahrenheit.
Not too much sunlight here in the land of the rising sun today. Very overcast conditions. We took a look at them earlier. 64 degrees on track right now. 9-mile-an-hour wind out of the east, out of the Pacific. Might have a battle closing in here for 5th place. Marco Derricks actually is going to go sideways. So a battle that was never to happen because Derricks loses it. We'll take a look at the replay here. He was closing in on the car ahead of him. That was Bjorn de Forsch in the 15. And Derricks looks like he might have just outbraked himself, locked up the rear end, and lost it there, I think.
Yeah, it did seem so. I think he underestimated or overestimated the speed that Bjorn is gonna take through this turn, and yeah, just locked it up in safety. Do not hit Bjorn ahead of him.
And we were going to watch Derricks to watch the battle for 5th, but now we've got him on screen looking at a battle for 6th because he's holding off Jan Heinlever right now. And not too far behind them is Martin Yoon in 8th. Other than Jep Willemsen, about half a dozen laps ago, haven't seen any pit stops scheduled.
Christo de Ridder was just in this lap for his pit stop, but he is, because of that, now one lap down.
Remember, we were talking about how tight it is getting in pit lane, and a lot of these guys are spread out, but if they all decide to come in at once, that could cause havoc, so they might want to space themselves out a little bit.
And Björn, the fourth ahead of the pack of the 3 cars here that we're watching, he has now caught up to the battle for P17, and he is struggling to get past these 2 guys because they're fighting so hard in front of him. This might have some implications for him as he is now getting caught by Marco Derricks.
That's Watsy Goldenwyke and Paulo Martins fighting for 17th. Martins, the lone Iberian in the field today. Trying to make a run, but at the same time, trying to be cautious for Bjorn DeForce going by. I think DeForce might split him. A little bit of a slide there from Martins.
Derricks goes into pit lane and overshoots the pit lane there. That was close for Jan Hein Lever.
Let's go on board with Derricks here, looking at the replay. We were talking about how that might be one of the more dangerous parts of the track. And just couldn't get it slowed down enough. Behind him, Martin Yoon, who was 8th at the time, actually did come into the pits. He was slow enough. And he sits in his box now.
Now the question is, does Derricks try to go into pit lane this time around?
Well, he's lost the position to Jan Hein Lever. He might want to. We'll take a look here. I think he is going to. He is indeed. Take 2.
Second try. This time he manages to stay on pit road.
Got it.
But quite on the edge, they're trying to get into pit lane, trying to lose as little time as possible there.
I've consoled many a teenage friends that if you don't pass your driver's test the first time, don't worry, you can go back in a couple of weeks and take it again. Marco Derricks passes the second time. He's in his box. And he is away. Should be good to go to the end.
Interestingly enough, Jurbe Willems just pitted a second time. And he's actually really slow through the pit entry.
I don't see any trouble that he ran into. Maybe pitted too soon. Is that possible?
Yeah, probably. But I'm not sure. Maybe he did run into some problems that we didn't catch.
Oh.
Or maybe he has some emergency to attend as he quits out of the car.
We hope all is well for Willemsen, who is in his box. Back up front, still Dirk Tourlings. Bob Van Cadwick second, Nick Thiessen third.
Marco Derricks nearly taking out the leader there in the last turn.
Oh, Derricks really sideways in the last turn. And that was, like you said, right in front of Dirk Tourlings. Tourlings just squeezes to the inside. And for the 3rd lap in a row, Derricks finds himself, for a moment, on the pit road entry. He does not continue to the pits, though. Stays out on track. Gets himself going again in that 207 machine.
But yeah, Tourlings, second time he dodges a bullet through the last turn there as someone spins ahead of him.
Haven't really seen anyone up front take a look into the pits yet. I wonder when that will come. I'm sure a lot of them just don't really want to give up their track position right now. It is a 3.5 second gap from Van Cadwick to Thiessen. We were wondering if Thiessen was going to be able to continue to close in. He has kind of stalled out a little bit at that momentum, though. He's pretty much been held to a 3.5 second gap ever since he got up into third.
Yeah, you're saying it, Bob van Katwijk. He's pretty much doing the exact same lap times as Nick Thiessen does. Last lap between the two, just 3/100ths of a second in favor of Nick Thiessen.
Battle for 7th place has become a little bit of a skirmish. Peter Balassa started 18th. He's up to 7th. Michael Lormans behind him started 19th. He's up to 8th. So they started next to each other, and 45 minutes later find themselves in the same situation. Lormans looking into turn 1. Took a peek around Balassa. Couldn't quite get there.
Now, Dirk Teurlings, still our leader of this motor race, he is starting to struggle either a little bit with his tires or the lap traffic that held him up, because last few laps he was slower than Van Katwijk behind him. But I think that was due to traffic, because on lap 41, as we're now on lap 44, in lap 41 he put in the new fastest lap of this race with a 1 minute .555.
And I believe we have lost Bas Slob to some hardware failure. Or some connection issues, I should say. I saw him dropping on timing and scoring. I thought maybe he was our next pitter, but I think this is a bit of an unscheduled stop in the race for him. So hopefully he gets back on with us and can finish out this race, because he was pretty fast at the time. That moves Balassa and Lormans up to 6th and 7th instead of 7th and 8th. As they work their way around the lap traffic of Paulo Martins right now, back in 15th. We are over halfway through this main event. Had our 15-minute sprint race this morning, won by Martin Asher. He is out of the race, along with Jaap Mulder, two very fast drivers. It's a shame to see them gone. Maurice Wirtz, Jerome Ursum also out of this race, I believe. I think Jep Willemsen as well might have DNF'd it, and Bas Slob was having issues just a moment ago. He might also be our next DNF, or that'd be our 6th. 17 cars on track, 9 of them are on the lead lap, but a couple of them are on a bit of a faux lap down because of a pit stop they took. Still waiting on the majority of drivers to come in and take that stop that they're going to have to take at some point before now and the end of the race.
I had a look now at a few pit stops, and it seems like that nobody so far did take tires on their pit stops, so fuel only stops for these guys in this 1.5 hour race.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't seen anyone quite go up on the jacks yet to take tires. It is a costly time factor, but if you're willing to take it, it might pay off for you later. But as time winds down more and more, I don't know if that's going to have much of an impact. Everyone pretty much spread out. Closest battle on track, I believe, is still for 6th place between Peter Balassa and Michael Lormans. And that is still 3/4 of a second. Everyone logging off laps, trying to make it to the end. Like I said earlier, almost like an endurance race stint for a lot of these drivers. 90 minutes, a lot of racing for these Skip Barbers.
Oh! Patrick Poster spun ahead of the two, once again creating quite a smokescreen for the two drivers.
Visibility was at an all-time low there, you are right, for Balassa and Lormans. That was Post who spun out there, that tight banked curve, and he sat backwards on the track for a moment, got it down into the grass, and back out on track. Post was running 13th at the time a lap down.
And have an update on P2 and 3, that is Bob van Katwijk and Nick Thiessen. Nick Thiessen seems to really close into Bob van Katwijk now. Last lap 4/10 in favor of Nick Thiessen. I wonder if that has to do with Marco Derricks looking a bit racy behind Bob van Katwijk and trying his luck to get past as he spins out yet again.
More troubles for the drivers today. Derricks has had his share of them, to say the least.
That's the 4th time he found himself on the pit road entry there. Only one time actually to go into the pit lane, or actually 2 times he tried to go into pit lane. First time he did take a bit too much speed there into the pit road entry.
Had a change for position in 9th place. Martin Yoon got by Franz Janssen. Both of them just recently went a lap down to Dirk Turlings, and Yoon was able to take that position. Janssen, after he lost that spot, went off track just a little bit, but he's all fine. Still in the top 10. We are down to 8 drivers on the lead lap. JB Masita, the next one, I believe, to go a lap down, but he's got a big old gap between him and Dirk. Wouldn't be surprised if Turlings has to come in for his pit stop before he catches him, actually.
Yeah, we still have about 39 minutes to go in this motor race. Some people are a lap down due to pit stops. So I'm expecting to see a few more drivers to go back onto the lead lap once we have everyone pitted.
Not much has changed in the battle for 6th place, which we were watching earlier. Peter Balassa continues to hold on to that spot over Michael Lormans. They're going by the lapped car of Paulo Martins once again.
We actually might see soon a battle start to develop for P4, as D4 is getting caught by Jan Heimer-Lever by about half a second to 2/10 per lap.
Right now, that is Bjorn de Forsch. He's had a quiet day. He was involved in a couple battles in the earlier 10 or 15 minutes of the race. But other than that, well, pretty much everyone up here in the top 3, I think, after that has had a little bit of a quiet day. And a pit stop from our second place at the time, Bob Van Cadwick. One of our first front runners to come into the pits. That 87 Skip Barber in his box right now.
And it will be interesting to see what Nick Thiessen will do now, as he stayed out, same as with Dirk Teurlings.
Thiessen moves up into second with that. Teurlings holds down the fort in first. Teurlings will not come in this time. Thiessen will also stay out. Will it lure anyone behind them into the pits, though? De Forsch, Heinlever, and Balassa, the next 3 cars behind him. Oh, and I think maybe De Forsch is coming in, and Jan Heinlever as well.
Both drivers come into pit lane. This will now be a battle for the pit crews, as De Forsch actually a bit slow there into the pit road speed limit.
Yeah, Heinlever really closed the gap on him there. Michael Lorman's also into the pits. Kind of an awkward pit entrance for him. With that blocked off area he had to get around. That's an unfortunate pit stall selection for him. Teurlings stays out. This moves Peter Balassa up into second. And I believe
both cars are already back out of the pit road. That's Jan Heinlever and De Forsch. And De Forsch with quite a fast pit stop over Jan Heinlever. You can see it, 4.2 seconds there, which was just about 2/10 when they entered pit road.
They only need about 35 minutes of fuel left. Hopefully he got everything he needed in that tank. Time will tell, I suppose. And Dirk Teurlings, I think, is coming into the pits. No, he is not.
Yeah, the lap car of Watse Goldewijk, the number 20 car machine there, decided to go into pit lane, and thus Dirk Teurlings decided to stay out of pit road for one more lap. Actually, Nick Thiessen took to pit road though, and this will be interesting now as he races against Bob Van Cadwick.
Here you see Thiessen pull into his stall further up on pit road. Right behind that brand new Porsche safety car here on iRacing.
Bob Van Cadwick now goes through the last turn on the apex, already getting out of that last turn onto the pit straight now. Nick Thiessen still standing in his pit stall, and Bob Van Cadwick goes past as Nick Thiessen starts to get off the pit road. And now our leader of this motor race is in pit road, Dirk Teurlings, onto the pit speed limit of 60 kilometers an hour.
Dirk goes up all the way to the second pit stall to make his stop. 56 laps is what he has run as the leader today. Well, not all as the leader, but making his stop now. It'll be interesting to see where he cycles through compared to everyone else. Van Cadwick coming out of the last turn now.
Long stop for Teurlings, and he's maybe going to lose this here. He is!
Oh boy. Bob Van Cadwick comes out, comes right in front of Dirk Teurlings, coming out right in front of him. And I think we might have a race for the lead.
That was 6 seconds there that Dirk Teurlings lost and he lost that all in the pit, actually on the pit stop, as Bob van Katwijk had a pit stop time that was 5 seconds faster than Dirk Teulings. Oh, and we have a spinner on pit road. Anthony DeLay has just hard into the barrier as he overshot his pit entry a little bit there.
He was trying to get it woed up. That dangerous pit entrance here. Very narrow. Back tires stepped out into the grass a little bit. That's a pretty hard impact into the inside barrier.
Luckily for the oncoming traffic there, he did not go onto the racing line there. As we also have a battle right now for P1, obviously. And yeah, Teulings is still behind Katwijk, but he really looks racing.
He does indeed. They both look pretty racy right now, and I believe everyone in the field has made their one required pit stop. I think that should do it for that. So your running order, I believe, is no gimmicks in there, no pit cycles to worry about working out. Bob van Katwijk, your leader. Oh, Jan Hein Lever has run into problems. He was running 8th at the moment, and
let's see what happened there. He actually had his left side tires on the grass there on turn-in. That obviously isn't going to help him with the turning grip, and around she goes.
Looked like a little bit of a handbrake turn there as he tried to save it. He gets back going. Another single car spin. We've seen quite a handful of them today. It is still a 64-degree Fahrenheit track temperature.
Yeah, but we can report that the air temperature went up by 1 degree Fahrenheit.
A balmy 64 here in Japan.
Yeah, don't forget your sun cream. It's getting hot here.
Bob van Katwijk continues to lead, and Dirk Teulings continues to look for a way around him. They are a significant gap back from Nick Thiessen, and here he goes. Teulings going to make it side by side, but not quite going to have the preferred line. He might get a big crossover move. Oh, can't quite get back behind him. They're going to be side by side onto the backstretch here. And who will give who the most room? I think Teulings is going to clear him. He does.
Yeah, Katwijk, quite interestingly enough, didn't have any drive out of that turn 11 there, and had to, yeah, pretty much give up the P1 position there over Dirk Teulings.
So our new leader, not so new leader, I should say, our old leader has returned to the top step of the podium, and Dirk Teulings in the 73 Skip Barber Formula 2000. Back up front. Working on their 60th lap of this race right now. We are 2/3 of the way through, a little bit more than that, 28 minutes left.
And Dirk Teulings, he really starts to drive away from Bob van Katwijk now, after he did make his move. So yeah, Bob van Katwijk has nothing against the speed of Dirk Teulings, which quite interestingly is that somehow he still was able to either save so much fuel, or maybe it's his driving style that he just was able to take those 5 seconds less on the pit stop on fuel-wise over Dirk Teulings.
Let's take a look back at 5th place. Actually, right now, Bjorn de Forsch is in a battle with Peter Balassa, and Balassa actually just made a pass in the last turn, but de Forsch looking back on the inside here in turn 1, a little bit of bobble and trouble as Balassa goes up into the air, keeps it on all 4 wheels and stays on track. That's Marco Derricks going through. Let's go on board with Bjorn de Forsch here.
Now, I don't know how
inside.
This is, yeah, quite some netcode there on my screen, which also seems to be the case here on the replay. Very unfortunate for Peter Balassa.
Balassa, the only driver today representing the Central Eastern Europe Club here on iRacing. He's going to fall in line right now behind Derricks and behind de Forsch. And Marco Derricks actually made a pass while we were looking at the replay on Bjorn de Forsch for 5th. So 2 for 1 in 1 lap for Marco Derricks, who he's had quite a few problems earlier in the race. It's got to be nice to gain a couple spots like that and move into the top 5. Oh, trouble behind him. Peter Balassa doing his best Herbie impression to get on the rear wheel there of Bjorn de Forsch. This battle is not over for 6th place. And despite the trouble these cars have both had, I don't see too much damage on either one of them.
Yeah, no, it seems like that most of this was due to netcode, a little bit of a bent front wing for Balassa, but that's about it for him, and no damage at all to the car of Bjorn de Forsch, as they once again get very close together.
Oof. Close out of the last turn indeed. De Forsch on the inside. Or I'm sorry, that was de Forsch on the outside of Balassa. So Balassa will gain that spot back, moving into 6th place. Can he keep it, though? Does Bjorn have anything for him? Bjorn was running top 4 a lot of that first stint of the race. After the pit stop, back to 7th. Things are going in the wrong direction for Bjorn de Forsch.
Now, while we were watching that, I just wanted to cue that up as our director switches over to this Battle for P1. The interesting thing is, since we went away from this battle and Turlings was starting to creep away from Katwijk actually started to get back into the gap of Turlings, as Marco Nork goes really wide there to let our 2 leaders past. So yeah, interesting development there by Van Katwijk, as he seems to be able to stay with Turlings in the draft.
He definitely has been able to keep him in reach, but he hasn't quite been able to reel him in, especially not enough to make any pass work, but he's definitely using his time wisely and studying his line. He's got 23 more minutes of classwork before his final exam. Nick Thiessen, you saw there on the graphic, 4.5 seconds behind them. Hasn't really been able to close in any more on anyone once he got up into 3rd place, but an incredible drive forward through the field nonetheless. Good battle for 9th place raging on. These are the last 2 cars on the lead lap. JB Masita and Jan-Hein Lever. What a race it's been for Jan-Hein Lever, up and down through the grid. Back to 10th right now, and scheduled to be the next car going a lap down. should Dirk Schurlings be able to catch him. He'd love for that not to be the case. He wants to get around JB Masita up into 9th, of course. Weaving their way down the backstretch, trying to decrease the draft. The car ahead of them going into the pits, that's Franz Jensen in 12th. But we'll stay with this. Masita continues onto the AstroTurf off of turn 12. Back onto the front stretch and keeping that position. This battle here looking very similar to that battle for the lead. Just a little bit of a gap, about half a second between them. Or 3 or 4 tenths of a second, I should say, between Bob Van Cadwick and Dirk Schurlings. Nothing new up there while this has been developing back here.
And Jan Heinlever, he seems that he has something in the cards for JB Masita, as he always in the braking zones gets ever so close to the rear of Masita, just not able to close in enough to make something happen right now.
Let's take a look at 6th place, Bjorn de Forsch, holding off Peter Bolasso. We saw them battling pretty hefty with each other earlier. Right now, that's Watsi Goldewijk in front of him. He's a lap down. 2 laps down, actually. But Balassa has really caught the back end of de Forsch, not letting him get away at all. They make their way around Goldewijk there. And continue this battle onto the backstretch. De Forsch might have to hold off a bit of a run here from Balassa. He's done it so far, though, in this race pretty well. Bit of an outside groove in that last turn we've been noticing. Trying to hit that late apex, get a big run onto the front stretch. Oh, Balassa looking to the inside. He's going to stick his nose in there. I don't think he's going to be able to keep it there, though. Really tight on the back of de Forsch. These drivers have made contact before as well, racing this hard. They don't want to do that again, especially now with under 20 minutes left of this main event race. He'll have another go at it into turn 11 and 12. Winding himself up in the backstretch, and sure enough, Balassa is going to look to the inside. I think he's going to be able to make it stick. I don't know. De Forsch is strong on the outside. Balassa, move him up to 6th place. He gets it done for now. De Forsch back to the inside. Not yet.
They were quite close there on the apex, but yeah, Balassa finally, in his point of view, gets past the 4 and can set his sights now on Marco Derricks, who is already going through the Dunlop corner.
I think that might be all she wrote for that battle, or for now at least. De Forsch, I don't know if he's got the pace to close back in on Balassa. As Patrick Post a lap down ahead of him.
While this was going on, nothing happened in the battle between JB Masita and Jan Heinlever for P9. But up ahead, at the top of this standings between Toilings and Bob Van Cadwick. Van Cadwick did lose out again a little bit, as actually Jan Heimer is now side by side here. Jan Heinlever, sorry, side by side with JB Masita.
That was interesting there, Steph. Heinlever got to the inside. I thought he'd get it done like we've seen so many of these drivers do today. And JB Masita held him off on the outside. Masita continues to hold down 9th place for now, but he knows Heinlever's looking. He took a peek to the inside in the last lap of turns 11 and 12. He's ought to do it again, I'm sure.
What I wanted to say real quick, Bob van Katwijk, he's starting to drop again ever so slightly off the back of Dirk Teurlings. So yeah, that battle for P1 is starting to get, starting to be in none anymore.
Bad news for the 72 of Patrick Post. Just a couple of turns ago, he had an incident that we are going to take a look at now, and not too much contact, but he has decided to tow that car to pit lane, so lots of time lost there for the driver, who at the time was running 11th place a lap down.
Quite interesting color combination there between his livery and the rims on his car there. But yeah, unfortunate event there. He just took a bit too much curb, went onto the grass ever so slightly, and completely lost his car into the foam barriers, actually, not tire barriers.
Couple of battles on track, but a few of them kind of stalling out. They get to that 3 or 4 tenths of a second buffer, and that's about all they have. Let's run you down through the field one last time in this race, as Dirk Teurlings actually just set the fastest lap of this race. A 1 minute 0.4 flat. That is fast here at Tsukuba. Dirk Teurlings leads. He's on his 73rd lap of the race now, and just a little bit behind him, 8 tenths of a second, and falling actually, is Bob van Katwijk in the 87 car. Third place right now is Nick Thiessen, another one who's falling back. He was about 4 seconds back, now about 5.5. So bad news for the 9 car. He's moving in the wrong direction. To find your next driver on the lead lap, you've got to go a long ways back. Martin Yoon. It's been a great quiet day for him. He started 9th. He's up to 4th. And behind him, Marco Derricks. He's had quite an eventful race, as it sounds like someone behind him actually ran into trouble. I've got to find who that was. Oh, Dirk Teurlings is in the pits. I think Teurlings was the one that... Did he blow an engine? He did.
Oh, he did.
Oh my goodness. Interesting incident there. Marco Nook actually behind him went spinning.
Yeah, on the downshift for Dirk Teurlings, he blew his engine there, and Bob van Katwijk narrowly avoids both the spinning car of Marco Nook and the slow car of Dirk Teurlings.
Oh boy, what a dominant day it has been for Dirk Teurlings. But on the 74th lap of domination, the 73 car lets go of the motor. That's got to be a heartbreaking finish to a long day of racing for Teurlings. That will promote Bob van Katwijk into the lead, of course. And Nick Thiessen, because of that, has been able to close in a little bit. It was 5.5 seconds. It's now 3.8 seconds. Don't count him out just yet. He might be sizing himself up for a late run with 13 minutes left. It would have to be a heck of a run, though, or have Bob van Katwijk run into some trouble. That is going to move Martin Yoon up into a podium position. Great day for him. Marco Derricks up to 4th. That's where he started. And Peter Balassa continues to hold off Bjorn de Forsch in this battle, which is now for 5th place. Teurlings has used his fast repair. He comes out right in front of him.
Yeah, Yeah, lucky break for Turlings here, as he's able to take that fast repair. I actually didn't realize that they had one available in this race.
That might save Turling's day a little bit. I'm absolutely sure it's not the result that he wanted, especially after such a dominant performance. Not just here, but also in the sprint race. Doing a great job getting second place in that.
One battle that is still raging is the one between JB Masida and Jan-Hein Lever, who are still fighting for P8 now, after Turlings had blown his engine.
Jan-Hein Lever really tight on the back of Masida. Looking for any room around him. Jan-Hein Lever, I've mentioned this before, I'll mention it again. He started 22nd, second to last in this field. So to be up battling for an 8th place position shows you how much ground you can gain in a long 90-minute race like this one. Which, by the way, we are 80 minutes in, almost 80 minutes in, down to 11:20 left on the clock. Getting down into the home stretch for these boys on the track.
And since we were talking about the race so far of Jan-Hein Lever from 22nd to 9th, we also have to mention Peter Balazar, who went from 18th to his current position of 5th. Bob van Katwijk, he also the current leader, from 10th on the grid to 1st. So all of these drivers with impressive climbs through the field.
I'll tell you one you might want to take a look at is Marco Derricks. He is closing in on the back of Martin Yoon, who just took a little bit of a slide through the last turn. Might be tires letting go on that 310 machine. But do not count Marco Derricks out for a podium position here. 10 minutes left. He might be able to chase him down.
Last time around 3/10 in favor of Marco Derricks, so he is closing.
Balasa in trouble. Sorry to cut you off there. Balasa running P5 at the time, hard into the barriers in turn 1. We take a look at that now. Just lost it going into the turn, it looked like. Tried to overcorrect, I think.
Yeah, as you said, he lost it into the turn. I think he was a bit too hard and fast on the brakes, and then hard into the foam barrier that they have laid out here at Tsukuba Circuit, and has to actually decided to tow his car.
Another casualty out on track. That's going to leave us with 8 cars on the lead lap, I believe. And it moves everyone behind him up just a tick. Bjorn de Force up into the top 5 with that. That battle for, it is now P7, JB Masida continues to hold down that spot. I think a couple laps ago that was a battle for like 9th place, a couple of cars falling out of the race. Now a battle for 7th. Jan-Hein Lever behind him, continuing to just kind of stall out at that little bit of a gap, half a second between them. He's really going to have to cut some change here and close that gap in the last 8 minutes of this race.
As there's a little bit of sunshine now, especially in the last turn here, you can see some shadows on the track. And yeah, as I said, they started this battle off for 9th, now they're having this battle for 7th. So even though they didn't gain a single position over each other, they gained some positions due to other drivers making mistakes.
We started this race just a little bit past 6:30 a.m. virtual standard time. We just hit 8 a.m. A long race, and as the day heats up here in virtual Japan, so does the track. We're up to 70 degrees on track temperature. Still rather cold, though, for these new version 7 tires on these Skip Barber. Let's take a look at how much Marco Derricks has closed in on Yoon. He's got about half a straightaway left, but he is getting there. It might be too little too late. He's got about 1.5 seconds between them.
Interestingly enough, the last 2 laps for Martin Yoon. Lap 79 was a 1 minute point 8, where Marco Derricks was about a 10th faster. Last lap, though, lap 80, Marco Derricks was 2/10 slower than Martin Yoon. Martin Yoon actually putting in his fastest lap of his personal race with a 1 minute point 750.
That gap continues to shrink, but not super significantly quite yet. Down to 1.4 seconds. He gained about 2/10 of that lap.
Yeah, and he only has about 6 or so laps to go to actually make a move on Martin Yoon. He nearly loses the car ahead of him. That's gonna get quite some chunk there out of that gap for Martin Yoon. Lucky break though for him, as he was able to save the car. He was really sideways. But yeah, was able to catch it and stays ahead of Marco Derricks for the moment.
You can just see and hear visually the cars sliding around these turns after 83 laps. After 82 laps, I should say, working on lap 83 now. Oh, Derricks! I was just about to say their tires letting loose. Derricks went for a little bit of a slide there, and I think that is going to end his run forward up at Martin Yoon.
As we go into the replay to see exactly what happened there, yeah, just crosses it up completely into turn 1. I think he did put his brake bias a bit too far back there, as it seems. And yeah, a bit too aggressive on the brakes, trying to push it too hard, and loses himself the opportunity on a battle for P3. Another battle that is still going, though, is the battle for P7 between JB Masida and Janheim Lever. Janheim Lever so far not finding the right tactic to get past JB Masida, though.
The Frenchman of Masida holding off one of the many, many Benelux drivers here in the gathering of tweakers for 7th place. This is a battle that's been raging on ever since they took that pit stop with about 30 minutes left. A long battle for these guys, and we mentioned you can see them slide there. These guys, I'm sure, would love 4 fresh tires now, but they just have a little bit left. 3 minutes, 40 seconds and change.
Yeah, that's about 4 laps left here for Bob van Katwijk, who is still leading this motor race with a gap of about 4.5 seconds over Nick Thyssen in P2.
Mentioned earlier how this was almost like an endurance race stint for some of these drivers. It's also an endurance race stint for the equipment. These tires are really showing... Oh, that was close there. Masida almost... He really slammed the door on Hein Lever. But also an endurance race, as I was saying, for the equipment, especially these new tires that these guys are... I think when Skip Barber season starts next week in the official iRacing series, these guys are going to have quite the upper hand when it comes to things after today's race.
Well, one thing we can already say, talking about the new tire model version 7, we see these cars have a bit more of a slip angle going through the turns, which represents real-world racing much closer, because pretty much any car that races a bit faster has a little bit of a slip angle going on. In Formula 1, for example, we're talking here about 5 to 7 degree, which really isn't a lot, which you can't really notice. But you can see the difference in sim racing, because we're used to see cars just not being able to have that slip angle at all. And all of a sudden, with that new tire model version 7, they're able to have that little bit of a slip angle while driving.
Just a couple of laps left for Bob Van Cadwick in the Gathering of Tweakers Skippy Fun race here this week 13. It's been fun indeed. Should be 2 laps to go, I believe, with about 90 seconds left of this 90-minute race. He has a comfortable lead over Nick Thiessen in the 9 car. About 4.5 seconds. Closest battle on track continues to be that 7th place battle with JB Masita and Jan-Hein Lever, which is about a 4/10 of a second lead right now. We'll keep one eye on that battle, the other on the leader, Bob Van Cadwick, making his last couple of laps here.
And Bob Van Cadwick takes now the white flag. 1 more lap to go in this motor race. Let's actually have a look real quick at JB Masita versus Jan-Hein Lever, who aren't that far up the road from our leader, as they go through the Dunlop Bridge now. And yeah, JB Masita still leading over Jan-Hein Lever, but how long will that stay like this?
And these guys are going to have virtually an extra lap because they have not taken their white flag yet, with how close behind them Bob Van Cadwick is.
As Jan-Hein Lever actually takes the inside here against JB Masita, will he be able to pull off this pass now? Yes, he will be, as he finally gets past JB Masita.
I don't know if it's done yet. Masita back on the inside, looking into turn 1 here. We'll take a look at that in just a moment, because coming off the final turn, after 88 long laps of a 90-minute race, Bob Van Cadwick is going to use the issues that Turlings had and take the win here in this race. Let's jump back to that battle, because Masita has taken back that position. Just a couple more turns left for these drivers. What kind of move will Jan-Hein Lever make into the final turn?
Well, he already showed it one time, 1 lap ago, that he is able to do it, so just rinse and repeat there. Jan-Hein Lever has to get the run on JB Masita. He is close, so he might be able to do it as JB Masita goes defensive.
Masita goes in defensive indeed, pushing him all the way down into the turn. Hein Lever pushing as much as he can with that car, but it's not going to be enough. What a drive for JB Masita to hold on to 7th place. Let's take a look back at how he got back into that 7th place position. We saw the lap before Hein Lever take the lead, but it came into turn 1. Masita, you see there on the inside, just being able to squeeze through there, hold on to it. That was all while Van Cadwick had the checkered flag coming out behind him. As we go on board here with JB Masita's 37 machine.
Yeah, just able to brake later than Jan-Hein Lever on the outside, and beautiful takes away this spot for 7th position.
That is going to do it for us right now. We're going to take a quick break. Hopefully get some drivers in here to interview, and when we come back, we will have your unofficial results and your interviews. Stick around. Welcome back to the Tsukuba circuit, the 2000 full layout that we've been using today. It's significantly more rubbered in there, you can see, than it was about 2 hours ago. We had a sprint race this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Martin Asher took home that victory, but then we had the 90-minute main event that this set us up for. Bob Van Cadwick, you see there at the top of the board, he is going to be your winner in that race after starting 10th. After starting 10th on the grid. Nick Thiessen behind him, Martin Yoon. What a drive for Yoon to get up into the podium position. Marco Derricks, he had his fair share of issues today, to say the least, but an amazing recovery, really, in hindsight, to get up into 4th. That's going to be in front of Bjorn de Forsch. He will round out your top 5, followed by Michael Lormans, another one who had a quiet day, but a great day, going from 19th to 6th. JB Masita. We saw that epic battle at the end, him holding off Jan Heinlever, and a heartbreaking day for Dirk Turlings. He is going to salvage this day for a 9th place. He led the most laps, but after blowing his engine late in the race, he finishes P9. Franz Janssen, 2 laps down, rounds out your top 10. Steph?
Paulo Martins in 11th, 3 laps down. He also gained quite a few spots there from 23rd into 11th. Wacek Goldewig, he is 12th, also 3 laps down, and the last car to actually finish this motor race, Krista de Rida, 3 laps down himself, 2 in 13th place. Peter Balazar is the first car to not finish this race, 11 laps down in 14th. Marco Nock, 15th. Patrick Post, 16th, that's right, 20 laps down there. Anthony De La Hayes in 17th. Buzz Slop, 18th. Job Willems, 19th, 50 laps down. Jörn Ursem in 20th, 63 laps down. Maurice Wurtz, 21st. Martin Asher, 22nd there, from 1st to 22nd. Quite a day to forget, or quite a race to forget for Martin Asher. And Job Mulder rounding out this field in 23rd, himself also being down 82 laps.
You can see through the field there, a lot of people a lap down. Only had 8 guys finish on the lead lap, and while almost every road racer on iRacing is familiar with the Skip Barber and has driven it at least a little bit. The new tire model, version 7, we saw that on display today. And Steph, I'm curious as to know your thoughts after seeing what your tires will do here after a 90-minute race like we saw today, what these drivers have in store for them with this new tire model.
Well, as it looks like and feels like, colder temperatures, the tires really, you can feel them work. You can feel that they don't have the grip that you would like them to have. Furthermore, not only do these tires now feel more realistic, but they also look more realistic as the cars are moving around a bit more on the tires and stuff like that. Obviously, nobody's perfect, and so we still strive to get as close to the real deal as we can, and obviously that is also the case with the tire model. But I'm really hopeful for this new tire model, because as we saw, the racing was great, and the Skip Barber pretty much is all about the tire grip, and we were able to see great racing through pretty much all of this race, and that is mostly down due to the new tire model version 7 working out really great.
Indeed, it did work out great today, and that racing was great today. That sprint race especially, I highly recommend you go back and check that one out. I think that racing is only going to get better as these drivers figure out in this community, in the Skip Barber community, as they figure out that new tire model. The talent combined with that realism only going to make things even better. We want to give a, first of all, congratulations to Bob Van Cadwick for this win today. It was a great race for him. Very well-deserved win. We want to give a special thank you to everyone who came out today for this great event, especially everyone who helps in the organization and behind-the-scenes logistics in the gathering of tweakers. An additional thanks to all the amazing companies that provide the software and hardware that we use to create a GSRC production for you. An additional thanks to the very talented Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde who provide our music. See the screen for more on how to get a hold of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Steph, Amjad, and Dougie. Make sure you check out the GSRC on social media. You can do that at our website on globalsimracingchannel.com. on Twitter at GSR Channel, on Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, on Instagram at GSRC_Graham, and of course on our YouTube channel right here, right now. We invite you to scroll down just a touch and hit that big red subscribe button so you don't miss a second of racing. That's going to do it for a great day of racing here in Japan, but that will not do it for a great day of racing on GSRC. Up next for you is the Spec Racer Ford V Runoffs Big Grid Race over at Road America. Make sure you head on over to the iRacing Esports Network at 2:45 Eastern this afternoon to check that one out. Those guys always put on a heck of a fantastic show. Finally, with all that being said, thanks so much for joining us today on the broadcast. And until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.